The Galactic Empire had crushed 100 civilizations before it ever turned its gaze toward Earth. From the molten remnants of the ZYX Commonwealth to the shattered ring worlds of the Korthari, no species had resisted the might of the Empire and lived to tell the tale. It was an inevitability, then, that they would one day arrive in Sol, their towering dreadnoughts casting shadows across Jupiter's storms, their war engines humming with the energy of 1,000 conquered worlds. Grand Marshal Scifi of the Imperial Armada watched Earth through the viewport of his command vessel, the Eternal Dominion. He had seen many planets fall, but this one puzzled him. There were no planetary defense grids, no deep space fortresses, no armadas lying in wait. The only artificial satellites were primitive, ancient by galactic standards. The creatures below, these so-called humans, were divided into nations, spent their energy on internal squabbles, and had barely ventured beyond their own moon. His mandibles clicked in amusement. This would not even be a battle. It would be an acquisition. The transmission was sent, as it had been sent to countless species before, a demand for immediate surrender. Earth's leaders were given one planetary cycle to respond. It was a courtesy more than anything else, a formality before the inevitable compliance. But compliance never came. Instead, a human representative appeared on the view screen. A middle-aged man with sharp eyes and a face unreadable to the Grand Marshal. His name was Director Elias Carter, and he spoke with neither fear nor reverence. "You are the leaders of this Galactic Empire?" Carter asked. "We are," Scifi answered, his voice a low, guttural rumble. "And you will submit. Your people will be absorbed into the Empire, your planet integrated into our domain. Resist, and Earth will be reduced to ash." Carter remained silent for a moment, considering the words. Then, to the Empire's utter confusion, he chuckled. "That's quite the offer," he said, "but I'm afraid we'll have to decline." Scifi's claws curled against the armrests of his throne. He had expected fear, pleas, desperate bargaining. Not this. Not amusement. "Then you have chosen extinction," the Grand Marshal growled. The human only tilted his head. "You might want to reconsider that assumption." The transmission ended. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire had been refused. Scifi's response was immediate. The fleet's engines roared to life, warships aligning into precise formations. He ordered a preliminary bombardment, enough to raise a few cities, a demonstration of power. The humans would watch as their world burned, and then they would understand. But as the command left his mandibles, an officer hesitated. "Sir," the lieutenant said, glancing at the data feeds, "our targeting systems, they aren't locking." Scifi frowned. "Run diagnostics." "I already have," the officer said. "All systems are functioning. The planet simply isn't registering." "Impossible." He turned to the view screen himself, eyes narrowing at the blue-green world below. A perfect target. Why wasn't it responding? More reports flooded in. The fleet's AI-controlled drones malfunctioned, spiraling aimlessly into space. Energy weapons refused to fire. Even the engines, which had been primed for an orbital advance, flickered and stalled. Scifi's claws tightened. "What is happening?" he demanded. Then the alarm screamed. It was not a battle alert, nor a hull breach, nor any warning the Grand Marshal had heard before. The sound was hollow, shrill, alien even to the vast and ancient databanks of the Empire. And then, before he could give an order, the flagship Eternal Dominion, the most advanced warship in the galaxy, ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. One moment it loomed, vast and imperious above Earth, its hull reflecting the distant sun. The next, there was only empty space where it had been. Scifi felt no pain. There was no explosion, no implosion, no trace left behind. And across the Empire's fleet, ship after ship vanished in kind. In the final moments before nothingness claimed him, the Grand Marshal understood. The humans had not been afraid. They had not bargained or begged because they had never needed to. Earth did not play by the rules of the galaxy, and it never had. The war ended before it even began. In an underground chamber beneath the Swiss Alps, hidden away from prying eyes and orbiting warships, a dozen of the most powerful individuals on Earth sat around a single, unassuming console. At its center lay the button. No labels, no glowing indicators, just a smooth, black surface set into steel. To the uninitiated, it was nothing. To those in this room, it was the deadliest weapon ever conceived. Director Elias Carter stood at the head of the table, arms folded as he regarded the button with the same detached calm he had shown during his conversation with the Grand Marshal. Around him, presidents, prime ministers, and generals watched the device as if it were a coiled serpent. "This is it, then," President Monroe of the North American Union murmured. "The choice we always feared we'd have to make. It was inevitable," said Zhang Wei, commander of the Pan-Asian Defense Coalition. His voice was steady, but his fingers tapped rhythmically against the table, an unconscious tick betraying tension. "We knew the day would come when someone out there saw us as prey. They never expected us to fight back," Carter said, his voice quiet. "They thought we were ants, but they don't understand what we've built." There was no celebration, no fanfare. The room was too solemn for that. Earth's survival had always rested on deception, on the carefully curated illusion of weakness. The Galactic Empire, like so many before it, had believed humanity was defenseless. They had seen the lack of fleets, the absence of planetary weapons, and assumed they were dealing with primitives. They had not considered that humans had found a different way. The button had existed for over a century, its technology discovered by accident, refined in absolute secrecy. Even those in the room did not fully understand how it worked, only that it did. There had never been a need to test it. Not until now. "The last of their ships are in position," a voice crackled over the comms, the deep baritone of General Vasquez from the command center in Antarctica. "If we're doing this, we do it now." The room fell into silence. It was not an easy decision. They had debated this for hours, for days, knowing that pressing the button meant unleashing something they could never take back. The weapon did not destroy. It did not kill in the conventional sense. It simply erased. "Are we certain?" Prime Minister Okafor asked, scanning the faces around her. "Is there truly no other path?" Carter exhaled slowly. "They gave us no choice. Surrender is not an option. Resistance is suicide. This is the only way." A nod, a breath, a decision. Carter stepped forward, placing his hand on the button, and he pressed it across the vastness of space. Aboard the titanic warships of the Galactic Empire, reality itself folded inward. No screams, no alarms, only silence, a quiet unraveling of existence. One moment, the fleet loomed over Earth, its weapons primed to rain devastation upon a defenseless world. The next, they were simply gone. Not destroyed, not defeated. Gone. On every radar, every telescope, every sensor station across the planet, the same data flickered in. Nothing. The sky was clear. The war had ended in an instant. For a moment, no one in the chamber spoke. No one moved. The only sound was the hum of the console, the quiet breathing of those who had just made a decision that would alter the course of history forever. Confirming total fleet disappearance, Vasquez reported over the comms, his voice laced with something unreadable. No residual energy signatures, no debris. They are a pause. They are gone. The weight of it settled over the room. A decision made, a future rewritten. They'll know, Zhang said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. The rest of the galaxy. They'll know what we did. Carter met his gaze, unflinching. Let them. The silence in the galactic void was deafening. Where once the Imperial fleet had stood, bristling with weapons and the arrogance of conquest, there was now only empty space. No wreckage, no radiation signatures, not even the faintest trace of what had been. The Empire's warships had been unmade, erased from existence as if they had never been. And the galaxy noticed. In the days that followed, whispers spread across the stars like wildfire. The Empire, unchallenged for millennia, the conquerors of 1,000 civilizations, had sent its greatest armada to a backwater world, only to vanish without a trace. No distress signals, no desperate final transmissions, nothing. One moment, they were there. The next, they were not. The news reached the imperial capital within a standard cycle. The throne world of Zaltharn, a city planet wreathed in obsidian towers and pulsing energy spires, had never known fear. It had never needed to. But when the message arrived, when it became clear that the fleet had not merely been defeated, but had ceased to exist, fear took root. Emperor Viron Vaxo sat upon his towering onyx throne, his claws digging into the stone. He had seen countless rebellions crushed, had overseen the enslavement of entire species, had turned entire moons into fuel for his war machine. And yet, in all his years of rule, he had never encountered an enemy like this. An enemy that did not fight, did not negotiate, did not engage in war as he understood it. The humans had simply erased his fleet. Across the empire, panic set in. Imperial governors, once proud and unyielding, sent frantic transmissions to Zaltharn, begging for guidance, for reassurance, for proof that the empire was still as invincible as it had always claimed to be. But no reassurance came. If Earth could wipe an armada from existence with the press of a button, then what was stopping them from doing the same to the empire itself? Worlds that had lived under the empire's boot for generations saw their chance. Rebellions ignited. Slave races cast off their chains. Imperial garrisons, once symbols of ultimate authority, found themselves overwhelmed by those who had once feared them. The empire, an unshakable monolith for millennia, began to fracture. And Earth remained silent. The decision had not come easily. In the underground chamber where the button had been pressed, the weight of what had happened settled over those present like a storm cloud. "They will never forget this," Prime Minister Okafor murmured, staring at the now inert console. "We have become something else in their eyes, something beyond fear." Zhang exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "It was always going to be this way. We were never going to be left alone forever. But this is different." Carter, who had been standing quietly by the wall, finally spoke. "They don't know how we did it," he said. "Only that we can." His gaze swept across the room. "And that is our greatest weapon." It was true. The Empire, the remaining factions of the galactic elite, the countless species who had once thought of humanity as insignificant, they all had the same question. What had Earth done? How had they wiped an entire fleet from existence? Theories ran wild across the stars. Some believed Earth had developed an ultimate weapon, a doomsday device beyond comprehension. Others whispered of forbidden sciences, of ancient technologies humanity had unearthed and repurposed. The truth, that the button was not a weapon, but a fundamental rewriting of reality, was known only to those in the chamber. And it would stay that way. "They will come for answers," Vasquez said through the comms, his voice firm. "They will send envoys, spies, maybe even another fleet, just to see if we can do it again." Carter nodded. "Let them wonder." And so, the message was sent. Not an explanation, not a warning, simply a statement, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Earth is not to be threatened. Nothing more. The effect was immediate. Some factions, desperate to avoid Earth's wrath, pulled back their fleets from Sol entirely, declaring the system untouchable. Others, more cautious, waited in silence, hoping that in time, the secret would be revealed. The Empire, now leaderless and fragmented, had no answer. It crumbled faster than anyone could have predicted. Humanity did not claim victory. There were no celebrations, no triumphant speeches. The leaders of Earth understood what had happened, understood the power they now wielded in the eyes of the universe. The button had saved them, but it had also changed them. "Are we gods now?" Okafor asked one evening, when the chamber was nearly empty. The others had left, but Carter remained, staring at the device. "No," he said after a long pause. "Just a species that learned something no one else did." The button was sealed away, locked in a vault where no one could reach it. Not because they feared losing it, but because they feared ever having to use it again. And somewhere, in the cold silence of space, the galaxy watched. And it waited.